Right, so this is still the AM show. This morning, it isn't too good for some of the coastal communities in the Volta region where the sea has literally made landfall and found its way into many homes. We're learning about 4,000 people may have been displaced, and schools and businesses have been closed as a result. Yesterday, when we reported on the issue, it wasn't clear what the plan was for the people who were displaced. This morning, we are going back to that story and get a better understanding of the interventions put in place for the people and how they managed to pass the night. Let's first hear from some of the residents who have been affected.
I'm currently at the Amutinu community, and the community school here itself is also getting its fair share of the devastation being caused by the high tides here in this part of the country. The students, when they are studying, the pupils, when they are studying, when they are in there, they can have a good view of the ocean. You've seen some of them there. Let's try and see if we can interact with some of them who were actually seated outside here studying.
The sea, first time the sea, the distance between the sea is very far. By this time, yeah, the sea is closer to us. Sometimes the sea can even come here, and we can flow through this area. Then sometimes disturb our knowledge. We can't even learn, and we can't even focus to learn because the way the sea is coming to hit the wall.
It hits the wall?
Yeah, it hits the wall, okay. And the sun is always disturbing us every day.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Now you can see visible cracks already in this structure. I'm told that this building used to be quite taller, you know, and there was no way I was going to be able to reach the height of this school building. But now, because of the high tides and because the ocean is drawing closer, now it's very easy for me to even touch ceiling here.
So Keta is actually in the which has been badly hit by this, is in the Ketu South municipality of the Volta region, and the MP for the area, Geographical, she has also been personally affected, and she has been talking about it with Maxwell Agbagba.
Social amenities here in the Ketu South constituency, many of them under threat, some of them already submerged under the ocean. Now the Amutinu MA Basic School, which is right here, is also one of the critical infrastructure currently under threat as a result of the violent tidal waves that keep pounding this community dotted along the coast here in the Ketu South constituency. We're lucky to have with us the Member of Parliament for the area, Abla Jifa Gomashi. She's here with us. We're going to interact with her and find out from her, you know, what the situation is like here in this constituency. Honorable, welcome to Joy News.
Thank you very much.
Great. Now, we're standing very close to the Amutinu MA Basic School, and it looks like it is the next structure that is going to go. If there's no intervention, there's going to be the next structure that's going to go. There's no building that separates, you know, this school from the roaring tidal waves now.
You are talking about 20 or so steps to the school. Yeah. If you say close is relative.
True.
But physically, about 20 steps and we are in the school. Yeah. And that's how close the sea has come to the facility. Now, if you look at what it is, and we are not able to improve upon it, to lose it, the thought alone makes my heart just shudder. I cringe when I think about it, that this is all they have. And if the sea should take it away, imagine, not too long ago, I think it was in May, I did indicate, and I'm sure if you go into your archives, you'll find this, that the next time the sea strikes, it will take the road. We saw it only 3 days ago and 2 days ago. So I'm saying to His Excellency the President, you cannot say you have not heard me. Your Minister for Works and Housing came to the floor of Parliament and answered the question that I filed. He followed up with a visit to the community and made a promise that by the end of the year, we will see the continuation of the sea defense So you must have heard about this. Why they are not here, I do not know. But I want to remind you, Your Excellency, that it costs more to do the road. It will cost a lot more to give us another school. And it will cost a lot more to provide for shelter for the people who are traumatized by the pounding of these waves. It is in our interest as a country to respond now. We should not wait any longer. What's happening is that the land between the sea, the road, and the next community is not as wide as we think.
True.
So once it starts hitting the road, we are about to get into that community as well. It will merge with the lagoon, and we are in trouble. I don't know how else to say this.
There's a sea defense that is some distance away from where we are standing. I spoke to the MC earlier and was telling me that it looks like it is not even providing a solution for the people there, because the violent wave sometimes goes over, will go over the sea defense that they have there into some of the communities.
If we continue, it won't. So let me assure the MC that if we continue with the defense, it will not affect it anymore. It's because that is the end of it.
Yeah.
That is the end of it, and that's why it's happening.
Okay.
If we continue, it will have a lot of room to operate. So let's not say that it's going over. So what? So we should leave it alone. We should leave it alone. This is the only other entry point into Ketu South. If you don't use the Accra Aflao main road, then this is your alternative. So if there's no alternative, should anything happen on the main road, what are we going to do? I mean, look, from Aflao to Ho, that road can take you about 3 hours because it's that bad. So let's not find excuses not to continue. We must continue this intervention. We have to fix it. And Honorable Asenso came and assured us that it will be done. So I don't even want to entertain that thought that because the end of it is exposing the people to what is happening, then we should fold our arms and throw it up, our hands up in despair.
So for the school, for instance, Touchwood, if the school should collapse, what other options are available for the many children who school here?
How can I have an option when I'm already in trouble asking that the SHS building be completed? And I led the committee of education to Togbi Fiti, who added his voice that we must fix the school, complete the school, so the children can benefit from it. What is the alternative? I don't have an alternative. So I am terrified, and I probably will sound like a doom monger, but it is the reality that when we lose this, then it means that there's nothing else. The borders have remained closed. That's where we get this, our source of livelihood. Now that it is not opened, the sea is an alternative. The sea is in battle with us. What is there?
So for the time being, for now, what kind of relief are we looking at giving to some of the people who are affected by what happened?
You know, the last time we brought relief here was when His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama and the members of Parliament from the Volta region in the NDC came here and brought some rice and some cement. If we ask them now, that they will find a grain of that intervention we brought. What we need is for the people to have access to decent living and for them to fend for themselves. We just need to provide the opportunities for them. We are not a lazy people. I mean, look, I represent the people. Do I look like I'm a lazy woman?
No.
I'm not a lazy woman. We are not lazy. And I don't think that people want to sit down for others to be bringing them an olonka of corn and an olonka of rice and a bottle of oil. Let's fix the sea defense so they can fend for themselves. In the interim, it will be humane. It will be a sign of showing that we care about humanity, that we find a place for them to lay their heads. About over 1,000 people have been affected this time around. I think 1,030 thereabout. Where do we expect them to go? Their relatives are the ones who have been struggling all this while, going through the situation. Where do they go? Where do they eat? What are they going to eat? What from 2019 we've been saying that open the borders, vaccinate the people and open the borders.
Yeah. So it's all about, it has everything to do with the sea defense. When the sea defense comes in, then this will stop, I want to believe.
Absolutely. But this started from Qatar.
Yeah.
Has Qatar not been saved somewhat? It took us a long time, but eventually we did, right?
Yeah.
So if we have been able to save Qatar from what is going on, if we don't continue, they'll also continue struggling.
Yeah.
Because the water will always find its level. It will look for a place to settle.
But finally, before you go, you are also personally affected by this.
I'm affected on many levels. I'm the representative of the people.
Yeah.
They honored me with the title as Mama Jamadogbato Choplau. So I'm a cultural leader.
Yeah.
I'm a traditional leader. And also I'm a resident. I have my property here. And even this morning, I saw how far the sea came this morning. And it left me the mark, telling me I'm on my way. But it's not about me. It's about those who are suffering now.
Yeah.
We can't even compare the two people. I'm a former Minister of State.
Yeah.
I'm the current Member of Parliament. At least my salary does come.
Yeah.
And how many of them can I share it with? So the people who need the intervention the most are the most vulnerable.
Right, so you just heard from Ablaji Fagomashi, who's the MP for the Ketu South municipality. We'll be getting on Zoom to speak with Engineer Abdullahi Mahama, who's a building and roads consultant. We're trying this morning to get to understand exactly what the situation is, and it's easy for you to just sit back and see the footage and draw some conclusions, but we're believing that if we can show you a Google map of the area, we can get a much better appreciation of exactly what is happening. And I'm going to have Engineer Abdullahi Mahama actually walk us through it and get us to appreciate, get an overview and see exactly what is happening in the area. We're also having Joshua Asamoah, who is with the Ghana Meteorological Agency. Yesterday, he was just giving us some insights about the fact that a lot of what is happening, or some of what is happening, has to do with global warming as well, and climate change. He says the polar caps are melting. As they're melting, it's increasing, it's leading to increase or rise in the sea level. And so eventually looks like we're going to be dealing with this for a long time to come, unless there's something significant being done to reverse the rise in sea levels and global warming and all of that. So this is a Google map view of the Keta area, where we have the Keta Government Hospital and Anglogan and that whole area. And as you can see, this is the ocean, and then we have the Keta Lagoon over here. So it's like we have a strip of land. I'm trying to understand exactly what we're trying to defend, as in by building or putting up the sea defense project. So Engineer Abdullahi Mahama, good morning and welcome to the AM show.
Good morning, Israel.
Yes, so I've been trying to do something, looking at the Google map view of the area and trying to understand what is happening. Hopefully you can help me better appreciate, or help our viewers better appreciate what is happening. Good morning, and you take it over. What do you understand to be happening by looking at the Google map view?
Well, like you've been saying for the past few days, good morning to your viewers and your listeners alike. The sea keeps on rising, and as long as we are fortunate to find ourselves along the shore, we have the benefit of being along the shore. So when there are any devastation, we have to embrace it. But once activities by other countries keep on rising with total disregard to the environment, these are the few things that we're going to face. Ghana alone cannot do anything significant to reduce the entire global warming. what we can do is that, as you just showed the map, those towns and villages along the coastal area, those who find themselves in the very lowest of the topography would be facing quite a significant devastation of the tidal wave visiting those shores. Along the coastal belt from Axim to Aflao, some areas are fortunate to have, in terms of grades, they are higher than the sea. So it will take quite a time, maybe decades or centuries, before they would be visited by the tidal waves. Like, if you remember when we spoke about the Ife about a month and a half ago,
yes,
I was emphatic that even though we have actually constructed a sea defense, we would have to be doing some monitoring to actually see whether at a point the sea defense will be functioning as expected, or we may have to increase the height. I remember very well that I said that in some time to come, we may have to increase the height. However, government should put a lot of priority on the defense project and tackle the lowest of the areas now and treat it as a matter of urgency and an emergency, so that government would prioritize how to allocate funds for those particular areas. I said again that once we block one section of the shore, the water or the seawater that is coming towards the shore, once it meets a barrier, water would always displace itself in the other free area. And so wherever you have ended the construction, the next area, unfortunately, if that place is lower, far lower than the sea level or at par, once the water, the level of the sea keeps on rising, then there will be an ingress of water into the community. This is not imagination, these are science, and this is when you read those Archimedes principles that we used to do. These are just the practical aspect of all those things that we learn when we were in school. And so therefore, this is not a surprise to me. However, my worry is that at a point in time, like Salagope and those areas, once the water is going across the road to the lagoon, people will be trapped. And there are only two routes within the southern belt towards the other country, that's Togo, Benin, and the like. So if people who are within that stretch can just continue their journey like the beach road in Accra towards Aflao, by joining at a point and then go to Aflao, are truncated, that's a national disaster. And so that's my worry. But we would have to continue with the construction of the
sea defense project.
And like I said earlier, I preempted that we may have to widen the base of the sea defense, because there's a likelihood that we are going to increase the height. Now, if it takes about a decade for the temperature to rise by 0.2, as of now, we are in the region of about 1.2, and this is the devastation. It is expected that in the next 30 years or so, we'll be hitting about 2.7 degrees. We are just about 1.2. And so if we should get to 2.7 for no fault of ours, then we should expect that the devastation or the rise of the water will go beyond what we have. So those buildings along the coastal area will be swallowed completely. Now the water is around their window level. If we get to about 1.8, trust me, would have swallowed all the building above their roof. And that is the saddest truth that we have to be faced with. Unfortunately, like I said earlier, we are not the major contributors of. They said Africa is facing the brunt or the negative impact of the global warming when they are contributing quite insignificant contribution, negative impact to the global warming. And that's how we find ourselves. And so if the 192 countries who have met at the treaty are not actually enforcing, making sure that they hold the bull by the horn to ensure that they can reduce the emission into the atmosphere, then we have a long way to go. However, as a country, we can only communicate with our neighbors, immediate neighbors, on our left toward the North Cardinal Point is Cote d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast, and on the right is Togo. So if Ghana can have a plan, a thoughtful plan that within the next 5 years or so, they are going to construct a sea defense right from Axim to Aflao, with the sections of which are highly above the sea level, which are rock outcrops. Already they are serving like a sea defense, like part of the central region around the Cape Coast Castle area. You see that some of the areas, the buildings are even sit on top of the mountain, 100 meters above the existing, the sea level. So those areas can never experience anything now. It might take centuries, if not. And so, you see, so the other thing I observed is that we didn't hear of what was happening around the UCC. Okay, I traveled to Takoradi last week Sunday, and I was just trying to observe because of our interview the last time. So I just tried to appreciate whatever is along the corridors of the shore. And I realized that just after the UCC junction and route to Elmina, the sea had actually, that is, you see, on the left side of Ghana, which is towards the western region, the only road that takes us to the western area is that Winneba Road, Elmina, Cape Coast Elmina, and the sea had gotten to about a meter or two to the main road that leads us from the Greater Accra, the capital, towards the western side and to Burkina Faso, Ivory Coast.
True.
And significantly, what I was very happy that even though it didn't come to the attention of, the citizenry, government has taken it upon itself. And when I saw, they were frantically protecting the road, the international road, by bringing in massive boulders and then lifting the area just along the road about 20 meters parallel to the main road. So that is being done because government has gotten to know that if they allow 1 month, 2 months, 3 months of negligence or overlooking that area, I'm sure that the western region will be cut off, especially around the coastal, unless we move towards the hinterland to be able to access the central region and then Greater Accra. So thumbs up to what is happening around that area. So what is being done at the Salagope and the Keta area is what we have to start to do now. Yesterday I listened to your program in the evening, and then one of the research man was talking about the planting of mangroves. One of the other researchers was actually trying to debunk or to play little with whatever efforts is being done by the sea defense. Let me reiterate and let me tell whoever is listening that the surest bet, the immediate solution to our problem is the construction of the sea defense. The second option is after the construction has been completed or during the construction, then the massive implantation or planting of the mangroves, which is known scientifically to be one of the major preventer of the tidal waves, aggressive tidal waves because of the nature of the roots.
All right.
When you go to just around the La Beach Hotel, on the left hand side, when you are heading towards Nungwa, you see some part of that growth similar to what they are talking about. It has a very firm, deep root that brings or consolidates the loose material to be firm against the anger of the sea. That's my initial submission.
All right. So thank you. I'd come to Joshua Asama, who's with Ghana Meteo. Yesterday, when we were having the conversation, you indicated how global warming, and indeed, Engineer Mahama has alluded to that, how global warming is contributing to all of that. I'd want you to explain to us once again, and also give us a fair idea what we're looking at in the short to medium term as far as global warming is concerned, and how that is contributing to a rise in sea level. Hello, Joshua.
Sorry, is it okay?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, so thank you. Good morning to everyone listening to us. I think Engineer Mahama just said basically everything. What we are seeing now are effects of climate change, and basically the factor that we play in climate change is negligible. We are basically not committing so much into the effects that climate change is having in the world. The Europeans and those high power countries are the ones having most of the effects or the causes of climate change. For us in Africa, our input is very minimal. But unfortunately, because of global circulation, what happens in any part of the world tends to affect other parts of the world. And so whatever is happening there, even though they are causing the climate change to occur, I will still be experiencing the conditions here, even though our causes are minimal or short or lower. What is happening is that we are seeing global temperatures rising. If you are getting like a 1 degree rise in temperature, like global temperature, it means in some areas you could get temperatures dropping to about 25 degrees. You are getting 25 degrees lower in other areas. When you go to other parts of the world, you are getting about 30 or 50 degrees increase. But then if you combine all of them together, those who are having a deficit in the temperature values and those who are having an increase in temperature values, they all come together and it will still move us into the positive parts of the temperatures. So globally, some areas will be having minimum temperatures or reducing temperatures, while others will be having increasing temperatures. Now, if you put all of them together, the world is having a higher temperature. We are moving towards the higher parts of the temperatures, which means we are in the warming state. So areas where we're supposed to have ice, snow, and stuff like that this year or the past few years are beginning to see rainfall instead of snow. The ice is melting. All these things are because of the temperature increase that we are seeing across the world. And when this happens, once the ice melts, in fact, nature actually created a way of absorbing all the rainfall. Just like in Accra, for instance, when it rains here, we're supposed to get some channels where the rains will pass and then get into the ocean.
Yeah.
So same way for all these areas. When the ice is melting, where we are supposed to be getting snow, it's rather rainfall. All these things will find its way into the oceans. And so even though we don't have ice here, but once the ice melts over the polar regions and others, we will find the water will find itself into the ocean, and so will cause the sea level to rise. And we in fact, almost every city along the coast is very close to the ocean. If some of them will have higher sea level, a higher level, the station will be higher compared to the mean sea level. Adan, for instance, has about 5 meters, is about 5 meters above sea level. If you go to Accra is about 67 meters above sea level. So the effects that the ocean will have on Tema will be greater than what it will have on Accra.
Yeah.
The effects that it will have on Adan will be greater than what it will have on, say, Axim, which is about 44 or 38 meters above sea level. So a typical example is in Adan, we had our meteorological station relocated because it was very close to the ocean, and it got to a point where the ocean actually took over the station. So we had to relocate the station to another place so that we can actually go and take our measurements. So because there's an interaction between the atmosphere and then the ocean, same way for land. So for us on the land, we are seeing an interaction between the atmosphere and the land, which is causing our cloud formation and then the rainfall that we are seeing. If you go to the ocean too, there's an interaction between the ocean and then the surface just above it. When that happens, it causes the ocean to rise in a way. So that is what we call the tide. So the interaction between the surface of the ocean and the atmosphere is what yields to the tide that we see. When the sea level rises, it makes the tide level also increase. And so when there's a wind speed blowing over the ocean, it then carries the tides along to the shore.
All right.
So if Adan is, say, 5 meters above sea level, which is very close to the mean sea level, and then let's assume that the wind speed is same for the past 30 years, and then the sea level in, say, 20 years, last 20 years was, say, 5 meters, let's just assume, and then the wind speed is blowing. or bring the tide to some point. So maybe not everywhere along the coast will experience the condition. But when the sea level increases to, let's say, 10, at the same wind speed, we'll have more areas.
It will carry the waves further. Yes,
exactly. So the increase in the water level is causing the tide to have higher, to increase the height of the tides. And it's also making the extent at which the tide will blow to the coastal area also increase. Yeah. So that is why most areas who are living across the coastline of the country, especially for those areas whose levels are very low, will continue to see this effects. Unless, just like Engineer said, we have some short-term ways of prevention, because we cannot stop climate change on our own. So what we can do now is to build a sea defense for most parts of the coastal parts of the country to stop the tide from hitting the homes of people.
All right, so for all that you've said, I think the bits that people can readily appreciate has to do with the melting of the polar cap. So if we have the ice melting, let's take a bowl of water and then put an ice block in there. And if we leave it to melt, as it melts, the water would drip down and fill the bowl. And so the water in the bowl will keep rising as the ice melts. That is the phenomenon we're trying to explain, right?
Yes, in a way. The only difference here is that the water level is already there. We see the sea is there, it has its own level. And then there's the ice, which is not contributing to the water level that we have at the time.
Yes,
but then now the ice is rather melting and moving into the sea. So even though we have our water level already, now there's additional water flowing into the sea, causing the level to increase.
Okay.
And so there's nothing you can do about that one, because it's actually not within your capacity.
Okay, so please hold on for us. We have Dr. Emmanuel Amamu Ochri, he's a geographer and former executive director of the Center for Remote Sensing and Geographic Information Service at the University of Ghana. He's also joining us. Good morning to you, Doc. And I would want you to look at the conversations we've been having so far, the point we've made about where the Keta situation is, and as you can see, it's a strip of land, and then it has the sea on one side and then the lagoon on the other side. And I'm trying to understand what we're trying to do with the Keta Sea Defense Project, or what we're trying to defend. Are we trying to defend that strip of land? And is it realistic to want to defend that strip of land? We're having this conversation so that hopefully we can decide whether it will be prudent or more prudent to relocate the communities than invest in putting up a sea defense.
Okay. So, when you look at the location of Keta, relative to the location of Lombe, Lombe is the national capital for Togo. So, in the long run, when we are talking about either restoring or replanning the whole thing, we must also not miss the fact that it could be a good economic factor if we save the coastal scenery to some extent, because Keta would be, and Aflao would be sharing the capital, the facilities and advantages of the proximity to the national capital of Togo. This we shouldn't lose sight of.
All right.
But we also shouldn't lose sight of the fact that human being also has become an additional geological and climatological factor. Geologically, if we still continue sand winning over there, we'll be weakening any advantages that the sea fence would give us. So we may have to be conscious that we take less sand so that nature, when it adds more, then we will be stabilized. Secondly, we still not studied the full import of the climate change. When we mention climate and geology, we are also looking at the time dimensions in terms of millions of years. That is, we were not there about 1 million years ago. About 1 to about 50 million years ago, that place may have been either above or under sea level, rising and falling, rising and falling. So with us going into future, nature may decide, that is geology, may decide to give a global change. That one is difficult to fight against, but we would assume that's why even when it comes to flooding, the civil engineer will say, let's calculate any return of hazard in terms of 100 years. And the recent happenings in Europe has defied this 100 years, or when you say 100 years, we assume that flood not come. It could be 1 year to 100. So these things, the civil engineers and geologists and so on and so forth will have to work their mathematics well in terms of the climate change. The climate change, even we in this part of the world have been saved from the visitations of hurricanes, but we do not know what is going to happen with the total global climate change, whether we will also occasionally have some visitations of hurricanes. And when it happens, then it means the sea level rises quickly during the time of the hurricane, and the effect is going to be even more disastrous. So, the country should, its academic faculties should also look at some of these things and be able to give us information and give us some warning, or prompt us to study what normally we would have looked over. So, one, Qatar, after all, they are sharing the vicissitude, but also the wealth of knowledge which the nation is thinking about in relocating and so on and so forth. The thinkers must also note the fact that within it is a strong economic advantage, so that if that place is well defended and beautifully done, we may even attract more visitors there than coming to Rome, or they may come there and share the facilities of
all right. So, Dr. Mamotri, you're talking about the tourism potential of the area, and which is why you'd say it's probably worth defending.
Yes.
All right. All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Emmanuel Mamotri, is a geographer and former executive director, Center for Remote Sensing in Geographic Information Service at the University of Ghana. And we will be going back to the community, as in going to the area itself, Keta and Roga areas, where we have Maxwell Agbagba. He's standing by right now. Yesterday, when we went to the community, it was evident that no relief had gone to the people yet. So we want to get to find out what the situation is right now as of this morning, and how the people survived the night, where they're having to keep. So we will be going to Maxwell Agbagba in a bit. But I want to come to you, Engineer Mahama. We've heard Dr. Amamo Ochri and his proposal. He believes that, well, Keta is worth defending. Just as you were saying, that that road that's leading to the Western region from Cape Coast is also worth defending, and government is doing something about it as we speak. He believes that Keta is worth defending. But I want us to look at the cost involved and whether we actually can defend the area in good time before it's completely overtaken.
Well, let me just do this. You remember you were talking about the bow and then the block.
Yeah.
The cap. The block is actually within the bow and displaced already, but it's above the cap.
Yes.
So anything above the cap was already not displaced, but once it starts to melt, it also finds itself into the bow, and that's when there will be a spillover. So that's actually, but if it's within the bow, it's already taken displaced a certain area, that will not, whether it melts or not, it will not increase. But when that area is above the bow or the cap, that iceberg or the block would melt and have to find a place to occupy. That's when it overflows. That's the simple thing we're talking about. Because the polar erosion, the iceberg is actually, the ice are above the sea, sitting on the sea. So as it's melting, it will increase the volume of the sea. The sea level. Okay, now let's come to this one. There's no doubt it's not to be discussed as to whether we would have to protect or leave any place that has a low-lying area along the shore. If you ignore the sea, the tidal waves will keep on taking the land. So not even only Keta, Glife and the likes. As the water rises and you don't do any protection, it's taking your land. And once it keeps on increasing and you are not trying to actually do anything to prevent it, any low-lying area that the water finds itself would occupy. So Keta is one example, Glife is one example. Any other area along the coastal belt which is low is an example. And at a point, it will come into the towns, the communities, and it will find itself into the land. And one of the negative aspects is that it will start to intrude into any water which is not salty. So there will be salt intrusion into your lakes and your rivers along within those small ponds that are being used as drinking water, will be taken over by the sea. And once that gets to that place, we'll have a longer or much more expensive way of treating the water to even consume. So for the defense, there's nothing that has to be done with the exception of doing the stone, the boulders to protect it, and then subsequently increase the growth of the mangroves. But this one has to be done by the Parks and Gardens, who will give us expert advice on that one, so that we'll know the extent. You see, within 2 years, the mangrove is understood to cover a certain height within 2 years. But we cannot wait for the 2 years before we start. 2 years doesn't mean that they'll be so strong to actually withstand the tidal waves.
Yeah.
But the boulders will be enough to withstand as they protect some shelter for the growth of the mangroves within the 2, 3, 4 years that will be planted. So the national planting policy that was just started a few months ago, we have to go back. And remember when we were in school in the Central Region area, when you are traveling those times, 1996, 97, 98, 2000, you see a lot of these coconuts along the
beach.
The coastal beach. It's almost gone. So the authorities have to start working on it. The doctor spoke about the winning of the sand. Coincidentally, what happened at the Salagope, when your Masagoba was there, you could see that blocks have been manufactured, have been produced. So people carry, according to the MP, the MCE, people carry cement to the place to go and commit an offense. Like I said at Glife, the people who are living there are the accomplices. They know, because Israel cannot go to Salagope or Glife and go and start winning sand. But it needs somebody within that area. And I said the last six weeks or so when we spoke about the Glife area, that if the people there don't become the watchdogs, their homes will be taken over by the sea. Before government will come in, you might not get the same benefit as protecting the place before government comes in. You know, sometimes movement of one location to the other is not easy psychologically when you are relocating.
Yeah.
Unplanned relocation is not easy. It can take a long years before the person will even conform to the new society where he has actually gone, suddenly. So these are the things we have to do. But like I said earlier, for the protection, it is non-negotiable. The sea defense is non-negotiable. The mangroves to be planted in front of the protection is non-negotiable. But I said it again, we would have to revise or revisit the design. If 20 years ago,
you indicated
we're doing the construction of the tidal wave, and we didn't anticipate that it would be that significant in these coming years. We would have to look at the base, because the more you go higher, the narrower it becomes, like a cocoon. So with the wider base, you'll be able to always project that, let's do the first phase. 1 meter or 2 meters has been constructed from beginning to the end. In the next year, because it's capital intense, the next year, government start to allocate funds. Like I told you the last time, we have to break them into lots. The lower areas become the first point of call, that we have to go by the second layer. In the next 10 years or so, we are going by the third layer. At the point, it might not go beyond. And so that we can protect. As for the lands, we have to protect them. Without that, we are losing all the lands. And you see, some of the coastal areas are higher than inland. So if those areas are overtaken by the tidal waves, then your guess is as good as mine.
Then the inland areas that are lower are going to also be submerged.
Yes. So does it.
So essentially, the sea is just looking for a place where it can breach and go inland. Yes. Once it goes inland, the low-lying areas in Accra are at risk as well.
Yes. So you protect the shore with or without anything that you have within, because the water just wants a place to just occupy, just to displace itself. So once it goes beyond the highest area and it finds the lowest area, it displaces there. And like I was saying, then comes in the Ghana water and their issues. They will tell you that when you have soil intrusion in all the lakes, we're in trouble. And secondly, some of the lakes, let's take this one for example. What happened around the trade fair area? There are some water lagoons or lakes which are not from the sea. Those water bodies already have saturated the soil. So intrusion of water into those saturated areas is difficult. Now, if we have that lukewarm attitude that people are now taking over all these lakes and ponds and rivers along, let's say, some few meters away from the sea, let's say 500 meters, 300 meters, and those areas becomes drier, capillary would find its way there. The water, because soil would always want to have some moist. So anytime there's that constant heating of the water or the sea water to the shore, those dry areas will be taking the water. However, if those areas are already saturated, it might take centuries for the sea water to intrude the soil. So these are really taken, and we have to make sure that we don't just dry all the lakes or the ponds which are not the sea water along, let me say, parallel to the sea in the lands, so that every time there's an intrusion, there's already a moist to block the intrusion of the water coming to the inland.
All right. I come to you, Joshua. What would you recommend? I mean, with the conversations we've had and all of that, and the conversations about global warming, what would you recommend from a meteorologist's point of view?
Okay. So I just want to make this point that the only reason why we are not seeing aggravation in this tide and then the effects of the sea on the land is just because of our geographical location. That is one thing that has really helped us, and the position of where the sea is.
All right. How is our geographical location helping us?
Yes, the sea is towards the southern part of Ghana. Most of the hurricanes that form, they are just rotational systems. And then when they form, there's a force called the Coriolis force, which pushes the systems towards a certain direction. And then when that happens, then it drifts the conditions along and then affects areas. And then if you see somewhere like the Americas, there's the Atlantic to the east. So first of all, the ocean has to be to the east of a large landmass. And then when the force pushes that system, it moves it towards the land to cause that devastation that you see. But because of the position of the ocean in Ghana, it's towards the south. And so when these things will even form over the Atlantic, they will rather move towards the western side and affect the American areas there. And so for us in Ghana, we are a bit safe from hurricanes for now because of where the sea is located, and then because we are also close to the equator. If you are closer to the equator, the force is minimal or very low. But those who are away from the equator, the force is quite higher. So you have to be away from the equator for effective Coriolis force, and then you have to also be to the west of an extensive water body. So these things are not present in our location.
Yeah, but Dr. Mamotri was
why we are not seeing.
Yeah, Dr. Mamotri was saying
Sorry?
that Dr. Mamotri, he was explaining that we can't really tell for sure what could happen when things change, because with global warming we're seeing lots of strange things happen, and it's possible that some things that we didn't think of in the past could probably be happening to us in the future.
That is what I was trying to address. We should not be too worried about that for us in Ghana, because to the eastern part of Ghana, it's just a large landmass. So you are crossing Togo, Benin, Nigeria, Cameroon, all the way into Eastern Africa before you meet an extensive water body in the Indian Ocean. And so for this event,
an extensive water body that can threaten us. That's what you mean?
Yes. So most of the hurricanes that affect the US and Canada areas, they actually are the thunderstorms that we see here. They move into the Atlantic, they get energized over the ocean, and then drift to the US and America and affects them. So because of the ocean, the ocean actually stores lots of energy. So when the storm hits the ocean, it gets...
Right, it looks like we have lost Joshua Asamoah. Your line has been quite reliable, your connection has been quite reliable until now, but yes, these things happen. Joshua, are you back?
Okay. Yeah, so like I was saying, the thunderstorms that we see here actually develop over the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, get the energy to build up more and then move to affect the US and then Canada areas. That's why it happens every year. They're actually in their tropical hurricane season. For now, they've had 21 tropical storms already, and the year has not even ended. So we are now looking for supplementary names for other storms that may form over the Atlantic. They have already exhausted the 21 names that are already there for hurricanes for the year. So that will happen, will continue to happen. Because of climate change, they'll get more of these hurricanes forming. But like I was saying, we are good because to the eastern side of our country, it's just land. There's no ocean to our east. Most of the time, if you see our weather warnings, we'll say thunderstorm or rain-bearing cloud coming from, Togo, Benin, or Nigeria. So they move from the eastern side and affect those of us in the western side. But because the ocean is to the southern parts of Ghana, the effect it will have on us in terms of hurricane is almost negligible. Right. And then we are also close to the equator, so Coriolis force will be minimal for us. That is one thing. And I'm saying that in respect to the tide, there are a whole lot of coastal towns that are very low. And so with increase in sea level and its effect on these areas, we should expect that more areas closer to the ocean will be displaced by this water, because once the sea level rises, the tide will also increase, and then that will be pushed inland to affect areas. So the earlier or quicker we act, the better will be for us.
All right, thank you very much, Joshua Asamoah. Joshua Asamoah is a forecaster at the Ghana Meteorological Service. But to you, Engineer Abdullahi Mahama, who's a building and roads consultant, yes, much as we're looking at trying to defend areas that are low-lying right now, what would be your advice to government as far as allowing or issuing permits for people who are now moving to areas that are already low to want to develop those places?
Yes, the assemblies have to be reading more. The national government, let me put it, the capital or the seat of government, does not sanction most of the buildings that we see along or within the capital or across the country, which is actually impacting negatively onto the environment. The local government is the sole responsible agent who oversees to issuance of permit under the Land Use and Special Planning Act of 2016, and then the National Building Regulation LI 1630 that mandates the Assembly to give permit and to use their discretion professionally to advise or to dissent or to reject or prevent people from putting up buildings within some areas, citing or giving reasons. So I must admit that some of the people who are the assemblies may have to do a lot of extensive education and refresher courses. Sadly, they have to. And so that, because we've come across a lot of people who are giving permit to structures along some areas within the capital or within even the inland, which are not supposed to be there. And so when you point out their own act that is supposed to give them the power to give approval or to disallow construction of those buildings, they are amazed that those laws are sitting on their shelves. So they have to read extensive, they have to be doing a lot of refresher courses, and be updating themselves with global changes. And so therefore, when the person has an authority at the assembly to know why he is not giving the permit for structures to be constructed, he will cite reasons why those things are being rejected. And that is the only way. We have to extensive education, extensive refresher courses, and then making sure that they put to good use the act that has given them so much power to give permit and disallow construction of those areas with their reasons which are grounded in law.
All right, so much as the local assemblies are the ones that will be giving the permits, if they give the permits and people have built in low-lying areas and government, there's some disaster or there's tragedy or they have encountered tidal waves, then they'll point to government and say, well, government, you have to come and build a sea defense wall. So government can't sit aloof, and if it knows that these things are happening and it's not doing anything about it.
Yes, so like I said, you see, the local government ministry is one of the embodiment of the government. So whatever we say to the assembly has to resonate to the top. But as government is trying to put in the measures, like I said earlier, the construction of the sea defense is very, very expensive. So it might take government, the state of government, to constitute a consortium of engineers and professionals to do an extensive survey of the areas likely to suffer the anger, then put the advisory of the sea. So that those areas will have an ally. The government will just rely an ally on those areas, that these areas for the time being cannot have any construction done unless the defense is adequately put in place to prevent the tidal waves aggressively coming on land before we can. So, but I think that, like you said, if government sees this as a state of emergency, they might constitute the body as fast as possible. And most of us are available. A lot of professionals who are better off than me, those who are experienced than me, they are all there. Constitute a body from the Ghana Institute of Engineers, come together to actually select people who can do this for the country, and then get sound engineering problems and solutions tabled to government, and then government puts in the legislative instrument on it and then pass it, so that people would know that there's a law. Like when you're on the highways, government has put an airline now that from the center of the dualized carriageways, 45 meters at both approaches, nobody can construct a house. So if you go and put out a building there, government can only pay for the land because the land belongs to you. But if anybody construct a building after the LI has been passed, the building will not be compensated for by government. A similar thing is what is happening on the Ofanko Amasaman stretch of the road. So that's what I think government should do to actually let us headway here.
Okay, thank you very much, Engineer Abdullahi Mahama. He's a building and roads consultant. Thank you very much for your time. And also thank you, Joshua Asamoah, forecaster at GMET, and Dr. Emmanuel Amamu Ochre, geographer and former executive director, the Center for Remote Sensing and Geographic Information Service at the University of Ghana. We appreciate all your insights. And one of the things that I believe that we should be taking away from this, much as government has been called upon to put up the sea defense wall, there are also concerns about people in those communities who are engaged in sand winning, which is essentially undermining the sea defense project that's actually taking place and worsening the situation of the communities. So some of those people, you are to blame as well for the distraction that is being caused as a result of the tidal waves phenomenon that we're seeing. So you have to put a stop to it, and I expect that the security agencies, the police and whoever would actually take action and deal with these things. You're watching the AM show. We're taking a break. We'll be back with more. Don't go away.